really want to add some bass line or some keys, but that's all we got for today. Hey guys, my name is Ivan, and today I will show you how to set up Shuttle Control to use with Ableton Drum Rack, and also how to then use the Ableton push controller to sequence our drums, to record them, to make fills, to send out velocity. Generally, it's a really small setup, but super effective. We also have a sample pack out today. It's already available on our website, especially for the Queen of Pentacles. And it's made by a French electro band, Maman Küsters. Actually, one of the members of the band is a French eurorack and pedal manufacturer called Elektro Gonzo. His company is named Squarn. And this is actually a really nice collaboration between an artist, designer. Let's see how it goes. And as usual, first of all, we have to set up a preset using the Cargo editor with the Shuttle Control. So without further ado, let's head straight to it. What we want to do today is send basically 7 triggers to control 7 drum voices on Queen of Pentacles. And we can also send 7 velocity values, although we only have 5 velocity inputs on the drum machine. You can send others to different effects or to filters or, whatever you want. First of all, let's set it to channel 2. The first 7 outputs will be our triggers. All of them to channel 2. So now what we want to do, instead of having a MIDI channel or like synth voice, we'll just set it up to respond to a specific MIDI note. Trigger note unipolar. Again, the same thing here. All of it is the same for the 7 outputs. All right, so let's start with note, let's say from C1. So it's more or less like a standard C sharp, go down, D1, D1 sharp, E1, F1, and F1 sharp. All right, so basically these first 7 outputs are just going to fire a trigger when we hit a specific MIDI note on our push controller or from any other MIDI controller. So let's leave output 8 just free, so we have a more or less simple visual representation of what is happening. We'll start from channel 9. Again, everything is set to channel 2. Since this is going to be just a single MIDI track, we don't really need to use all 16 channels of MIDI. Here, what we're going to do is velocity note unipolar. Again, the same for every channel. Make sure to select velocity note, because there is a normal velocity which will only respond to any MIDI note that you press on that specific MIDI channel. But velocity note is velocity of a specific note. So velocity note unipolar. Now we will just duplicate all of the same MIDI notes that we have set up for triggers to velocity. So again, starting from C1, then C1 sharp, then D1, D1 sharp, and F1 sharp. So as you can see now, pretty much everything is set up. We have 2 channels missing, which is channel 8 and channel 16 for CV output 16, channel 2. Let's go to synchronization section and select some kind of LFO. LFO triangle unipolar works for me. Let's also disable all of this stuff because we are not really sending anything from the host to device or from device to host. So really all of this stuff is unnecessary. Right current preset. We'll see P light up. So now everything should be working. We can see an LFO already going on channel 16. Now let's head to Ableton and I will show you how to set up a drum rack. Switching to Ableton, we have one simple MIDI track. What we have to do is now go to Instruments, and select the drum rack. Now we have all of these pads, which you cannot see on the Ableton push yet, but as we populate them, you'll see the LEDs light up. So next thing, the same way as we set up the external instruments in previous tutorial for bassline, for arpeggiator, for a lead line, we'll have to insert an external instrument into a pad that we want to trigger. Let's put the external instrument to C1, MIDI output to Shuttle Control and to channel 2. And now if you're using Mac, you can press Option and just drag and it will copy everything. So since we only have 7 voices, this should be enough. All right, now, although everything seems to be set up, there is one thing that Ableton does by default that might be a little bit confusing at the start, and it took me some time to understand what was the problem. Here I will explain it to you, and everything will be super easy. So first, we press an external instrument, or actually let's open this, then I/O. And as you can see here, this pad is responding to MIDI note C1, but then is sending a note C3. So although it might look like, oh, I already have everything set up, when you press the note, it's not actually sending C1, it will send a different note value. So we have to reconfigure each of these external instruments to send the correct note. It's very easy, just scroll down, just set them to the same note as it receives on. Same here. Scroll down. Actually, it might be easier if we just copy paste this again. Then you don't really have to scroll so much. Now we just add 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we should be good to go. Let's just check if this is working correctly. Now, as you can see, I have 7 pads, 7 green pads. As I press on each pad, the corresponding CV output on the Shuttle Control should light up. So, all right, kick is working, snare, clap, and the new samples. As you can see, we also have velocity for each output, which we'll use for maybe hi-hats. Really, it depends what genre you're making. So if it is hip-hop, velocity might come in handy. But maybe if you're doing, techno and you're trying to send velocity to kick drum, maybe it's not the best option. But again, there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. And as long as you have fun, everything is good. Now let's set the BPM to around 120. Let's try to create a first beat using some of the samples. Now I can just quickly quantize everything. Let's check what sounds we have. All right. As this is a French electro sample pack, we'll try to do something in the same genre or more or less close to that. Let's try to tweak some sounds on the Queen. I also quite like using the built-in saturation and overdrive. It works in a similar way to a compressor, making everything glued together and sound a bit more like a one instrument, But if you go too crazy, yeah, everything will sound a bit dirty. Let's introduce some effects. Also, if you press Shift, and repeat and select 16th. Now we can introduce some snare rolls. Sounds pretty nice. Let's stop this and let's check out some other banks. Let's also try to use some of the velocity features that we've set up on the Shuttle Control. So I'll go ahead and just delete this. So we start with something new. All right, let's disable that. Let's try something else. All right, let's press start. Okay, let's cut this to a 2-bar loop, shift it slightly and quantize. Let's remove some of the distortion, it's a bit too much for now. Now let's check which one is the hi-hat. Alright, C3, which is drum number 6. So we'll use the output 14 and feed it in the velocity input here. Let me stop this. Now, the harder I press, the louder the sound will be. So as you can hear, very quiet. Actually, for kick drums, this works pretty well because as in the original 909, accents will also add a bit more distortion. They will also tweak the decay stage a little bit so that the drum machine sounds a bit more alive, you know. Let's go back to this. Reactivate the roll function. Let's try some effects. Let's also use an LFO and feed it to control. Let's try effects. Gives it a bit more movement. So as you can see, this is a really nice way, especially in Ableton, instead of again having 7 different MIDI tracks for everything, you just have one drum rack, and inside the drum rack you can open it up and you have independent controls. It's not a full use of a drum rack, you know. The ideal way would be to feed every single output of the Queen to your audio card and record everything multi-track. Then you can apply effects, you can process everything further, do all the EQ and all the mixing. But yes, for now it's all MIDI, but as you can see, it conveniently fits into just one MIDI track. Let's try a different bank maybe. Let's delete this. All right, let's remove this LFO and the ring mod. Let's try something else. Really liking these sounds. All right, let's start the beat again. Simple 4 on the floor drum. Maybe the bass is a little bit too long, so let's try to shorten it. If you press and you see the blue LED, now this is our last sample, which is S4. So we just... Sounds much better now. So the first sample is a little bit too much. Let's pitch it up. Really missing some hi-hats, but unfortunately in this bank we don't really have more. Let me show you the repeat feature again. As I put the high-pass filter up, I'll introduce some snare rolls. Let's try one last sample and then I will show you how to load new samples into the Queen of Pentacles. So new bank, delete the old pattern. All right, let's deactivate this. All right, again, same kick. Let's make the pattern a little bit longer. Alright, sample number 4, which is output number 7, means we'll take this velocity value and we can unplug the old one and use this. Again, maybe the hi-hats are a little bit too long, so let's apply a bit of the decay envelope. Let's add more distortion. I really want to add some bass line or some keys, but that's all we got for today. The kick is just so crunchy. We can add even more distortion. Really cut through any mix, you know. So as you can see, it's very simple to create a drum rack apart from the different node configurations. But as you know that now everything will be easy in the future. It's very fast to just, you know, tap the patterns instead of using sequencers. And you know, modular is so famous for sequencing and all the crazy automation, but in the end, everything sounds super clocked and has no humanization part of it. And this is a really nice way, you know, coming from like more hip-hop beat making to doing the same thing with eurorack. And I saw that quite a few people now are trying to make hip-hop with eurorack. This really makes it much easier. You can manage your patterns inside of your Ableton. The only thing that I couldn't really figure out, and I'm not even sure this is possible, is muting the MIDI patterns using the pads. So for example, if we look at Ableton, let me open this drum rack. For example, let's start a pattern. Now I want to mute my kick drum, so I press mute. And as you can see, if there was a sound inside of our drum rack, like a sample inside Ableton, it would mute that. But unfortunately, it doesn't really mute MIDI. So unless you guys know of a way to do this, and I actually found the Max for Live device, which no longer works. If anyone from Ableton is watching, this would be a really helpful feature for live, you know. You just want to mute your stuff quickly without having to mute audio, or let's say you have external drum machines that you're trying to trigger. This is really a big thing, you know. It's very simple, but unfortunately it's not there as of now. So one last thing for today, as many of you know, Queen of Pentacles is based on the 909 Roland drum machine. But since we couldn't really load the original samples inside of there due to, you know, copyright reasons, now we can just download them from Google, and I will show you how to import these samples into a specific bank. And yeah, because I got quite a few support messages of people having problems with doing this, but in the end, as you will see, everything is fairly simple. And yeah, let's go to Google and try to find some samples. Roland 909 ROM samples. So as you can see, I already did my research. This is the one, samples by Colin Fraser. As you can see, the Roland 909 had 4 different samples. One for close hat, open hat, ride, and cymbal. And we can download them here. So yeah, all right, without pressing. You can just press download link file, download linked file, and download link file. Actually, one thing, the hi-hats are grouped as one sample, and the original samples were 6-bit, but this guy already did most of the job and converted them to 8-bit, which should work pretty seamlessly on the Queen of Pentacles. So now let's pull this down and go back to our Ableton session. Create 4 audio tracks. This is just to show you how to separate some of this stuff. Hi-hats, ride. Okay, let's start from here. Hi-hats, 3 samples. Pull them here. Now I think we can close our internet. Hi-hats will be first. Ride will be second, and crash the last one. But as you can see, if I open the hi-hats and I play you the file, the first part is the open hat and then it is the closed hat, so we have to separate it. So just copy paste here, move this to, all right, so yeah, first one is going to be the closed hi-hat, second one is going to be the open hi-hat. And as you can see, all 4 samples fit pretty seamlessly on the Queen. And you also have the choke groups, which makes original functionality of choking available to you. And this is a nice way to create more sparse patterns where you just don't have, you know, all different hi-hats hitting at the same time, in the end it's just like noise and you cannot really mix other sounds into it. Yeah, let's rename this close hi-hat, open hi-hat, right, and crash. All right, so now we have selected the start points and end points. To make the samples available, like already cut and free to move to a folder, we select all four, and then you press crop clips. Now this is going to cut everything. You see now we just have the hi-hat, the close hi-hat, open hi-hat, right, crash. Actually, I'm not really happy with this cut as we have a bit of silence at the start. So let's move that. And as usual, final everything. Crop sample. Now we have a good one. So then you go to your current project, to samples, processed, cropped. Let's delete the one we don't want, is this. Yeah, move to trash. All right, so now we can move this, close that, create a new folder. Let's put this to bank number 8. So we have the folder structure ready. Now let's take all of these samples and move them here. All right, it's just one. Okay. Oh, come on. All right, these 3. Somehow they're already there, which is really weird. Okay, let's organize this folder. All right, now we can see everything. For now, the way Queen recognizes which sample is first, second, third, and fourth is literally by the name of the sample. So we have to rename them in the order you want to have them on the module. So I guess the first one, the close hi-hat, is going to be sample 1. Crash is going to be, no, open hi-hat is going to be number 2. Then ride will be number 3. And crash will be number 4. So now we are ready to go. Let's switch off the Queen, take out the SD card, load the samples. So taking that out, simple SD card, into the countless dongles should appear here. All right. So now let's delete bank 8 and put our new samples in here. It's literally all you have to do. The only thing is every bank has to be named by numbers, and every sample has to be named by numbers as well. Now our card is ready to be ejected. Let's take it out, plug it back in. Turn on the Queen. Let's scroll to our new 909 sample pack. Not sample pack, they're original 909 ROM samples. And let's try to make some kind of techno beat. Alright, so this is what we're looking for. So now for techno, let's put our BPM slightly higher, like 124. Delete the pattern we had, and we don't need these samples anymore. Let's start the metronome and enter in the kick pattern. Pretty simple. Alright, now let's use the first sample. Is going to be track number 4. So we use output number 12 for velocity. Shift, repeat, set to 16th. Now we can create some kind of sidechaining ducking effect. So the first one, maybe we want to pitch it up a bit. And this is where distortion comes in really handy. Maybe we can also make them a little bit more sparse. Now let's record some We can also add some swing to the pattern by pressing quantize and swing amount. So as you can see, you can always load your own samples, and the process is pretty similar. You just have to make sure the bit rate is 16-bit or below. And as long as that's true, everything will work. And if not, you can always ask us questions. Let us know in the comments if you have any problems. Yeah, this basically sums up our tutorial series for the Shuttle Control. You can now create your MIDI tracks, your arpeggios, your leads, any melodic voices on separate MIDI tracks. Then you can have also a drum rack to trigger drum sources with velocity. You can also start adding different kinds of random, like sample and holds, to make your drums more weird, and especially if you're doing more like glitch stuff. For that, it will be useful to modulate different effects, different filters, especially like bandpass filters work great for that stuff because you have very rich harmonic content, but you also have a lot of stuff going on. So you try to kind of separate the frequency range for each sound. In the end, your mix sounds not like muddy and, you know, over cluttered, but clean and just like Richard Devine does. That's it for today. I hope everything makes sense. And if it doesn't, as always, let us know in the comments. Click that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.